very confusing. And L. Ron Hubbard openly wrote about this in his work. And then the CIA, without even attributing anything to him, copied it almost word for word in an interrogation manual.
Really?
Oh, yeah. So being able to speak confusing phrases helps you to be more persuasive. They discovered this in the 50s and 60s that if I can confuse your brain acts as though it's somebody that's falling. So if you imagine when you're falling, your limbs are flailing all over the place, and the first solid object that they come into contact with is going to grab around it, no matter what, even if it's a thorn bush or something.
Okay.
Right? So anything that's solid in that moment of confusion is going to get grabbed onto. So the brain corollary to this is if a person's confused, the first logical piece of information they hear after being confused will be automatically accepted, or more automatically accepted, without being screened or scrutinized by the brain.
Hughes spent decades training military and intelligence operatives in advanced influence techniques. His claim is blunt. Confusion is not an accident, it's engineered. He calls it controlled perception. The idea is to subtly dismantle someone's mental map of reality and replace it with a version that serves your objective, without them ever realizing the swap happened. Here's how it works. First, overload the target with contradictions. Give them 2 or 3 truths that can't coexist. The brain will scramble to resolve the conflict, and in that state, it's wide open to suggestion. Next, layer sensory cues, symbols, color patterns, even specific rhythms in speech that bypass conscious filtering. Over time, the target's internal narrative shifts, but they believe it was their own conclusion all along. Hughes warns that at scale, this doesn't just change opinions, it can create entire parallel realities within a population. 2 people can live in the same physical world, yet inhabit completely different mental ones, each certain they're right. And here's where Bentov's influence theory meets modern tradecraft. If human perception is a tunable system, then controlled perception is the operating manual. Instead of guiding someone to enlightenment, it guides them into a constructed version of reality, one you control. Unlike Cold War experiments that required labs and specialists, these methods can be deployed through ordinary media, culture, even casual conversation. And once the perception shift takes hold, undoing it is nearly impossible. But in the digital age, these principles didn't vanish, they evolved. What once required trained operatives and controlled environments is now woven into the very platforms billions of people use every day. The tools have changed, but the objective remains. Shape the lens through which reality is seen.
Google was incubated and funded by CIA and NSA and DARPA, and how the PageRank algorithm and all of the proprietary IP that's used in Google was developed first in DARPA. And then there was these 2 people that are listed in that article from the CIA and NSA who were visiting Sergey Brin many times when he was developing it and testing it, and they were funding it.
And this is proven.
Yeah, this is his article right here, How the CIA Made Google, Inside the Secret Network.
Good God.
Fascinating deep dive this guy did.
The infrastructure they built doesn't just answer questions or connect people, it quietly maps behavior, preferences, and thought patterns on a global scale. In practice, this means the digital environment can be shaped with extraordinary precision. Each search, scroll, and click contributes to a constantly evolving model of how the user interacts with the world. The deeper the model, the easier it becomes to anticipate and design for specific responses.
If you use blue light specifically, it actually destroys the dopamine reward tracks in your brain. Just so you know, Meta and Google today own those patents.
Cruz's observation adds another layer. The influence isn't limited to what appears on the screen, but to the screen itself. The spectral quality of artificial light, especially in prolonged exposure, affects the brain's chemistry. Lower dopamine shifts the mind into a state of reduced drive and heightened receptivity, subtly altering how information is processed. Taken together, these elements form an ecosystem that doesn't just communicate, it conditions, not in the overt, heavy-handed sense of past propaganda, but through gradual adaptive feedback. The result is a mental environment where certain narratives find easier passage, and others fade into the background. But for the agencies that pioneered these methods, influence was never just about controlling the present moment. In their most unconventional experiments, they went further, testing whether perception could reach into events that hadn't even happened yet.
People's patterns of interaction and speech are extremely predictive of things like engagement and compliance. The pattern of mobility you have during the day, the pattern of how you communicate people, even from accelerometers, how you move. As you see, people are exhibiting behavior that could be best described as foraging behavior, very ancient biological behavior, whereby people have routines and then they break loose and they sort of exploratory vignettes, and then they go back to their routines.
This is where influence becomes something more than persuasion. In the past, you could only react to what people were doing. Now, predictive models mean you can act before they've even made the choice. Pentland's research shows that with enough behavioral data, Algorithms can forecast shifts in opinion, consumption, even social unrest, and design interventions to steer them. And these interventions don't need to be heavy-handed. Change the timing of a notification, subtly adjust the framing of a headline, reorder a list of search results, and you've shifted the odds toward a preferred outcome. It feels organic, but it's engineered.
Your brain does not react to the world. Using past experience, your brain predicts and constructs your experience of the world. The way that we see emotions in others are deeply rooted in predictions, right? So to us, it feels like we just look at someone's face and we just read the emotion that's there in their facial expressions the way that we would read words on a page. But actually, under the hood, your brain is predicting. It's using past experience based on similar situations to try to make meaning.
This is the real loop. Data feeds predictions. Predictions shape context. And context alters what your mind believes is real. At scale, it means the same infrastructure that serves you news or entertainment can also run quiet experiments, shifting collective perception in ways that feel natural, inevitable, even self-generated. Over time, the loop tightens. Every click, pause, or scroll teaches the system more about you, refining the predictions, making the nudges smaller, more precise, and harder to detect. The better the model knows you, the less it needs to push. A perfectly tuned environment doesn't force compliance, it makes you walk willingly toward the path it's already drawn. And because it operates on probabilities, it doesn't need to be right about everyone, just enough people, enough of the time, to shift the trajectory of an entire society. But if reality itself can be bent through a predictive feedback loop, then the question isn't just who's controlling the present, it's who's already written your next move, before you even knew there was a choice to make.